Late at night, a woman was taking a solitary walk. Suddenly, a creepy, overweight man appeared and tightly grabbed hold of her, intending to make her his overnight companion. The woman took advantage of the situation and delivered a swift kick to the man's face, freeing herself from his grasp. However, the man seemed unfazed and continued to admire her attractive figure. But then, something strange happened. Blood slowly oozed from every pore of the woman's body, evaporating into a crimson mist that enveloped the surroundings. With an eerie laughter, the woman disappeared into the mist. When she reappeared, a sharp blade struck the man's face. It was the beginning of a fierce battle between ninjas, and the story revolving around them unfolded. A woman stood bathing in front of a waterfall. Tonight, she would offer her body to her beloved. After finishing her bath, Ago couldn't wait to find Danjo. They were heirs to the Koga and IGA ninja clans, respectively. Due to their positions, they could only meet secretly in the mountains. Ago unbuttoned his shirt and jumped into Danjo's arms. Suddenly they were interrupted by the sound of a distant explosion. It was Ago's village. They hurried back, only to find it under attack by Oda Nobunaga's army. Seeing the devastation in the village, Ago stood frozen in shock. Danjo grabbed her hand and rushed into the village. Their top priority was to evacuate the surviving members of the IGA clan. Oda Nobunaga's main forces were about to raze the village to the ground. Ago turned to seek revenge, but Danjo stopped her in her tracks. With the remaining IGA clan members, they escaped through a secret passage. However, as soon as they emerged from the tunnel, they were ambushed by the enemy. Danjo took a good look. It was a Koga weapon. It turned out that the Koga clan had conspired with Oda Nobunaga. Danjo, unaware of this, attempted to explain, but Ago, devastated by the loss of her people and the betrayal of her loved one, couldn't listen anymore. She picked up a nearby weapon and pointed it at her beloved. Thus, the prolonged conflict between the two clans ignited once again. Eventually, Oda Nobunaga was defeated, and both the Koga and IGA clans pledged loyalty to Tokugawa Ieyasu, the shogun. Under the mediation of Hattori Hanzo, a truce agreement was signed between the two clans. Everything seemed calm and peaceful. Many years later, on a certain day, Tokugawa Ieyasu summoned Ago and Danjo under the pretext of observing their ninja skills. By this time, both of them had aged. Their hair turned white, so they sent one of their ninja to perform for the Tokugawa Ieyasu. IGA sent Yashimaru, who excelled in using silk threads as weapons. His body was wrapped in strands of women's hair, twisted from the black hair of young women and soaked in a secret animal oil mixture. This made the threads resilient and razor-sharp, capable of easily slicing through rocks. His opponent was the shogun of the Koga clan, who had a spider-like physique. He moved with incredible speed and agility and could expel projectile-like blobs of viscous phlegm from his mouth, with a stickiness hundreds of times stronger than normal mucus. As Yashimaru found himself restrained, the shogun approached him from behind, ready to end the match. At that moment, Yashimaru activated the threads between his legs, effortlessly tearing apart the sticky phlegm that bound him. The two warriors then continued their battle on the attic floor. Just as they were about to decide the winner, Tokugawa Ieyasu called off the fight, and praised the fight as an eye-opening experience. He then revealed his true intentions. It turned out that Tokugawa Ieyasu was getting old, and in order to choose an heir between his two sons, he hoped that the two major clans represented by Ago and Danjo could engage in a decisive duel. The winner would become the heir to the shogunate, and their respective clans would be rewarded with a millennium of honor and prosperity. Danjo and Ago immediately agreed to the proposition. They decided to each send 10 of their most powerful ninjas to engage in the battle. As evening fell, they gathered by the riverside and wrote the names of the combatant ninjas on separate scrolls. They commanded their subordinates to return the scrolls to their respective clans. However, Danjo suddenly launched a sneak attack on Ago, shooting poison needles from his mouth. The long years had diluted his love for Ago, and he had to act in the interest of his family. In that moment, Ago's trained eagle swooped down. Taking advantage of Danjo's distraction, Ago seized the opportunity, pulled out a steel needle from her mouth, and pierced Danjo's body. Thus, the leaders of both clans met their demise, and one man was missing from each side's list of fighters. Ago's tears fell onto her beloved's body, and with a cry from the eagle, her pet, the bird carried the scroll and flew towards the IGA stronghold. The great ninja battle was about to commence. Meanwhile, on another side, history had an astonishing reunion in store. Genosuke, Danjo's grandson, and Oboro, Ago's granddaughter, had been in love for many years. They hoped to use their love to end the animosity between the two clans, but little did they know, a great war is coming. In the darkness of the forest, Josuke, the ninja of Koga, spotted the eagle carrying a message. He immediately shot it down with a shuriken. Just as Jasuke was about to examine the contents of the scroll, a short knife flew towards him, blocking his way. The person who appeared was Rizai, an IGA ninja. Rizai recognizes the flying eagle as the pet of the clan leader. Go! This means that the scroll is the information of the IGA clan. Jasuke, however, had no intention of returning it and swiftly concealed the scroll, planning to make his escape, but Rizai was in no hurry. His arms can be extended indefinitely. He quickly caught up with Jasuke and kicked him hard in the face. What was strange to Rizai's kick felt like a soccer ball. It seems that this is Jasuke's ninjutsu. The two fought until dawn. During his escape, Jasuke encountered Genosuke and Oboro. With just a single glance from Oboro, Jasuke lost his balance and crashed into a tree. It turned out that Oboro possessed the Eye of Disillusionment, an innate ability to unravel any ninja technique, while Oboro didn't possess any ninja skills herself. Her natural power made all ninjas fear her. Reluctantly, Jasuke handed over the scroll to Genosuke. It was revealed that Genosuke and Oboro had already been betrothed in an effort to reconcile the deep-seated animosity between the Koga and IGA clans. However, the animosity between the ninja of the two clans remained. As Oboro was about to open the scroll, the IGA ninjas hastily intervened to stop her. Genosuke, not wanting to put Oboro in a difficult position, took Jasuke and retreated. In her anger, Oboro threw the scroll to Rizai and his comrades. Upon opening the scroll, the IGA ninjas discovered news of a life-or-death duel between the clan leaders. The leader of both clans had died in the fight, but Genosuke and Oboro, the heirs, were unaware. To gain an advantage, Jingoro had concealed this information, falsely claiming that the two clans had reached a truce. Jingoro then invited Genosuke to visit the IGA clan, while intending to keep Oboro in the dark and eliminate Genosuke and Jasuke. After the conclusion of the evening party, they locked Jasuke, who was intoxicated, in a cell. However, this proved to be no obstacle for him. At that moment, Juan, who was sent to assassinate Jasuke, coincidentally encountered him. Mesmerized by Juan's seductive figure, Jasuke couldn't help but flirt with her. Unaware of her true intentions, Juan took the opportunity to propose a ninjutsu competition. If she lost, she would be Jasuke's wife for the night. Jasuke immediately accepted the challenge, but soon blood began to seep from Juan's pores, enveloping Jasuke in a blood mist. This was Juan's ninja technique, using the blood mist to impair the enemy's vision while freely maneuvering within it. She swiftly appeared behind Jasuke, wielding a blade aimed at his face. However, Juan had underestimated Jasuke's strength. Instead of hurting him, she was even taken advantage of by him. Jasuke's body was incredibly flexible, allowing him to stretch and contract like a soccer ball. Ordinary physical attacks were useless against him. The sound of their fight attracted Oboro's attention. Jasuke then came forward to admit his mistake, and explained that it was all a misunderstanding. Witnessing the situation, Oboro had no choice but to leave with Juan. At that moment, Oboro noticed salt stains on the ground. It was obviously Jingoro's mark. The salt stains led all the way to Genosuke's room. Worried, Oboro hurriedly ran there to ensure Genosuke's safety before leaving. Oboro knew that the salt stains were left behind by Jingoro's ninja technique. She immediately activated her Eye of Disillusionment. Jingoro's body falls down like a puddle of mud. At this moment, Jingoro needs to rehydrate to restore his shriveled body. Juan, who was on the side, wanted to help. Oboro stops her immediately. This is a kind of punishment for Jingoro. Jingoro had to crawl step by step to the river, just in time to meet Jasuke, who was cleaning the blood. Seeing Jingoro crawling from Genosuke's room, Jasuke realizes that the IGA ninja must be plotting something, so he grabbed Jingoro. He asks what they're up to. In that moment, Jingoro revealed that the two clans were about to engage in a life-or-death duel. Taking advantage of Jasuke's shock, Jingoro instantly entered Jasuke's body. Although Jasuke has a strong defense, but he can't do anything about the destruction inside his body. Ultimately, he died at the hands of Jingoro. The beautiful woman's situation was incredibly tragic. Not only was she stripped of her clothes and tied up, but she also had to endure cruel torture from a big-headed old man. And yet, she's not afraid. She even taunted him, but this also angered the old man with the big head. And in the moment he touched the woman, his arm became firmly stuck to her body. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't free himself. Soon, his own arms started to seep blood. It turned out that this was the woman's ninja technique. She could absorb her opponent's blood through her skin, much like a leech. Then, the woman wrapped her legs around the man, and within moments, she had drained him of all his blood. This woman's name was Hui. a female ninja from the Koga clan. She was sent by her brother Saemon to gather information in the IGA territory, as their leader Genesuk had not returned. While traversing through the forest, Hui was coincidentally discovered by Tenzen, the vice leader of the IGA clan. They recognized Hui as a ninja listed on the opposing side's battle roster. Unaware of the danger, Hui was ambushed by a group of IGA members while drinking water by the river. Realizing the precarious situation, she tried to escape by leaping into the air and using tree branches as support. However, Mino, an IGA ninja, pursued her closely. Mino's ninja technique allowed him to control his body hair, enabling him to freely navigate through the forest. He quickly caught up to Hui and launched an attack. Unable to dodge, Hui fell from a tall tree and lost consciousness. Seeing the seductive figure of Hui fainting before him, Mino couldn't help but reveal a wicked smile. However, in order to extract valuable information, Tenzen ordered Hui to be imprisoned in the salt warehouse within the IGA territory. Meanwhile, on the other side, IGA ninja Yashimaru was desperately rushing towards his clan's headquarters. He needed to deliver the battle roster of both clans to his own family in time. Suddenly, he heard someone nearby calling his name. The voice belonged to none other than IGA's vice leader, Tenzen, but he didn't know that it wasn't Tenzen, but the Koga ninja Saemon, who was skilled in voice mimicry. Yashimaru, without any suspicion, immediately revealed the truth. The non-aggression pact between Koga and IGA was now nullified. Saemon marveled at the truth, and this revealed his true voice. Yashimaru immediately launched an attack, using silk threads to tightly bind Saemon, intending to kill him to keep it a secret. However, suddenly, a pair of hands emerged from the wall and firmly gripped Yashimaru's neck. Yashimaru attempted to counterattack using the silk threads on his legs, but his opponent didn't give him a chance. With a powerful force, his throat was crushed. Then, a man materialized from the wall. He was Kasumigaseki, a ninja from the Koga clan with the ability to blend his body with walls, floors, and wooden planks. Using the technique of invisibility, in order to find the leader Genesuk, Saemon disguised himself as Yashimaru using a disguise. The two of them decided to infiltrate the IGA clan's inner circle for reconnaissance purposes. After Hui killed Razai, he picked up the scroll on the ground and wanted to check it, but then there was a sound of someone approaching the door. Hui had just hidden the scroll. Jingoro walked in and found Hui lying on the ground, her clothes disheveled. In an instant, he began to lose his mind, but as he approached Hui rolls over and pushes him to the ground. The blood in Jingoro's body began to drain quickly. Hui was like seeing a delicious food. Jingoro saw the salt piles nearby, which seemed like a lifesaver. Jingoro desperately moved towards the salt piles, and in the next moment, he used his ninja technique to turn into a liquid. Hui, unaware of Jingoro's technique, quickly backed away in fear. Jingoro took this opportunity to escape in a panic. Hui knew that he had been exposed. She picked up his weapon and prepared to flee, but unexpectedly, he encountered Mino. Hui cuts off his opponent's weapon with one swing. The two of them got entangled in an instant. Hui wanted to use her ninja technique, but she needed to make contact with Mino's skin. However, Mino did not give her a chance. He controlled his body hair to keep his distance from her and then transformed his hair into countless spikes, ruthlessly piercing Hui's body. Blood flowed continuously from Hui's body. Meanwhile, Saemon, disguised as Yashimaru, had arrived at the IGA territory, but he ran into Hadarubi, Yashimaru's lover. Hadarubi didn't suspect him, but told him about the recent events. Upon learning that Hui had been captured, Saemon immediately asked Hadarubi to take him to where Hui was being held. But when Saemon pushed open the door to the salt warehouse, the scene before him left him completely shocked. Hui was lying in a pool of blood on the ground, and Mino, the bastard, was lifting his pants. Saemon fought back his grief and reached out to Hui, using a secret code to communicate with her. Hui also used the secret code to transmit her final information to him. The scroll containing the information was hidden in a nearby haystack. Saemon secretly took out the scroll from the haystack, preparing to leave. But suddenly, Oboro arrived at the warehouse. The two locked eyes, and Saemon's ninja technique instantly collapsed under Oboro's eye of disillusionment. He slowly returned to his original appearance, and his true identity was exposed. He quickly threw the rolls out. Before IGA could react, Kasumigaseki suddenly came out of the ground and grabbed the scroll. Once he had the scroll, he quickly left. Saemon took advantage of the chaos to jump onto the roof and escape. At that moment, the door to Genesuk's room in IGA's guest house was opened. Kasumigaseki handed the scroll to him. After reading the scroll, Genesuk's expression became grave. Through the scroll, he had learned the whole truth. The non-aggression pact between the two clans had been nullified. He immediately decided to return to the Koga territory. Tenzen also led his men to the area at great speed. They decided to let Genosuke die here, but suddenly, Genosuke's eyes burst with a golden light, and the people who were about to attack him instantly lost their sanity and began to attack each other. This was Genosuke's ninja technique, the Eye of Counterattack. Afterward, Genosuke, accompanied by Seiman and Kasumigaseki, walked through the crowd of IGA ninjas, step by step, towards the main gate. And at this moment, Oboro also learned the truth. She didn't want to be an enemy of Koga, and she didn't know how to face her beloved anymore. Genosuke walked away from her with a serious look on his face. Tenzen, unwilling to let go of this opportunity, ordered Shikuma, who used the flying sickle, to attack, but in an instant, the sickle was blocked by Kasumigaseki, who was by Genosuke's side. Shikuma's true ninjutsu was the whirlwind sickle weasel, launching attacks by spinning the sickle at high speed. But even so, Shikuma was hit by the Eye of Counterattack and his eyes were injured by his own ninjutsu. Tenzen hoped that Oboro would use her Eye of Disillusionment to break Genosuke's ninjutsu. However, Oboro was a pure-hearted girl who longed for peace and to be with her beloved. She didn't want to harm Genosuke. By this time, the IGA people couldn't stop Genosuke from leaving, and they could only watch him go. Although Chikuma survived the battle, he lost his sight. The IGA people couldn't understand Oboro's actions. They hoped that Oboro would come to her senses and join the war between the two clans. But Oboro stated that she couldn't harm Genosuke. But Oboro's jutsu was the only one in the IGA clan that could break Genosuke's jutsu. They put all their hopes in Oboro. The innocent Oboro couldn't understand why there was such deep hatred between the two clans. The elders then told her the story of the bloody feud between the two clans, dating back to a great war 50 years ago. In that war, Koga, led by Oda Nobunaga, attacked and mercilessly slaughtered the IGA village. Since then, Koga and IGA have been bitter enemies, but Oboro is the current leader of the IGA. She must avenge the deaths of her people. Oboro said she needed time to consider. She entered her room alone. Oboro and Genosuke were originally childhood sweethearts. She didn't want to see a war between the two clans and didn't want to hurt her beloved, so she took out a potion and sealed her own eyes. She is Kajiro, the most beautiful woman in the ninja anime, yet no man dares to approach her, because every man who comes into contact with her meets a violent death. Whenever Kajiro's body feels excitement, she exhales deadly poison gas from her mouth, causing the other person to die in agonizing pain amidst their pleasure, and this is her ninja technique. With this unique ninjutsu, she became one of the top 10 elite ninjas of the Koga clan, but it is also because of her unique ninjutsu that she cannot experience a normal love like ordinary people. Yet she fell in love with the leader of her own clan, Genosuke. Years of repression finally made her unable to control her emotions, so she went to Genosuke's room, and without saying a word, she threw herself into his arms. In Kajiro's affectionate gaze, her body couldn't help but start emitting poisonous gas to avoid being poisoned to death. Genosuke activated the Eye of Counterattack. Kajiro instantly suffered the backlash of her own poison. The long-standing admiration for Genosuke tormented Kajiro's heart, so she made a terrible decision to die with Genosuke. Just as the two were talking, a venomous snake slithered into the room. The snake had already targeted Kajiro. Genosuke immediately stepped forward and cut off the snake's head, but the snake's mouth contained a deadly venom. Now Genosuke's eyes were also sealed, and the originator is the IGA ninja Mino and Hatarubi on the wall. Suddenly, Hatarubi's butterfly caught Seiman's attention. Kajiro and Seiman chased after them simultaneously. Mino appeared silently. At this point, only Genosuke and Gyubu were left on the Koga side. Mino was very confident, because Gyubu was naturally blind, and Genosuke had just had his eyes sealed. Dealing with two blind men was a piece of cake for him. Just as Mino was confidently preparing to launch his ninjutsu attack, Gyubu suddenly opened his eyes. His Eye of Counterattack was even stronger than Genosuke's. It turned out that Gyubu was Genosuke's master. Although naturally blind, he could use the Eye of Counterattack at night. In an instant, Mino died from his own ninjutsu. On the other side, Seiman chased after Hatarubi and injured her leg with a hidden weapon, so Seiman asked Kajiro to return to the base and continue the pursuit alone. But in the process of chasing and killing Hatarubi, Seiman was tricked by her ninjutsu and she escaped. Helpless, he had no choice but to return to the base, only to find Mino already dead, so Seiman used ninjutsu to disguise himself as Mino. Hatarubi was limping with her injured leg, with her thigh injured and heavy rain pouring. Hadarubi is having a hard time walking. Finally, she climbed to the top of the mountain. But the bridge to the opposite mountain was unexpectedly broken. At this moment, despair filled Hadarubi's heart. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, continuously calling out her name, but Hadarubi didn't know that the person in front of her was Seimon in disguise. He was recounting his achievements, describing how he killed the 3 enemies, but when Hadarubi saw Mino's hand, she instantly remembered. She had bandaged the hand of Seimon disguised as Yashimaru herself. Hadarubi immediately recognized the person in front of her as Seimon. The two of them engaged in a battle right away. Hadarubi's kick missed its mark, and Seimon managed to take away her dagger. Just as she was preparing to use her ninjutsu, Seimon swiftly severed Hadarubi's arms, followed by thrusting his blade through her body. In the end, with thoughts of Yashimaru in her heart, Hadarubi, with tears in her eyes, fell off the cliff. On the other side, the IGA faction, due to the long wait for Mino and Hadarubi, Tenzen and the 5 of them decided to go to Sumpa by water. Little did they know, at the moment they boarded the ship, there were eyes watching them. Meanwhile, Jingoro was extremely fearful, as his body dissolved in salt. Once he encountered seawater, he would completely dissolve. Throughout the journey, Oboro had been deep in thought, even with her eyes sealed, but she couldn't escape from this ninja war. Tenzen was dissatisfied with Oboro's current state, so he deliberately sent Wan and Jingoro away, and assigned Chikuma to guard outside the cabin. Tenzen approached Oboro alone to talk. He once again tried to persuade her to use her Eye of Disillusionment to fight against Genosuk, but Oboro would rather let Genosuk kill her than become his enemy. With the imminent battle, Tenzen completely lost patience. He decided to use strong-arm tactics to bring Oboro to his knees. Tenzen shamelessly pulled Oboro into his embrace, and she desperately tried to resist, but with her eyes sealed, she was defenseless against Tenzen. Like a little lamb encountering a wicked wolf, she could only helplessly call out to her comrades. However, Wan and Jingoro were stationed at the rear of the ship and couldn't hear her. The only one who could hear was Chikuma outside the cabin. Although Chikuma deeply loved Oboro, he dared not defy Tenzen as his master. Listening to Oboro's pitiful voice, Chikuma's heart was torn apart. He was in agony but couldn't muster the courage to intervene. With Oboro repeatedly calling out Chikuma's name, he finally gathered the courage to run towards the cabin, but at that moment, Tenzen was being choked to death by a pair of large hands. And standing behind him was Kasumigaseki, who could use invisibility ninjutsu. With the sound of bones breaking, Tenzen was strangled to death. Chikuma and Oboro were both blinded, and had no idea what had happened. After killing Tenzen, Kasumigaseki appeared behind Oboro, ready to strangle her as well. At this critical moment, Wan and Jingoro arrived just in time, and Kasumigaseki disappeared without a trace. Seeing Tenzen's lifeless body on the ground, the first thing Jingoro thought of was Kasumigaseki. Ever since boarding the ship, Jingoro had been constantly on edge, and now he finally snapped. He drew his ninja sword and went on a rampage on the ship, even running onto the deck and demanding a duel with Kasumigaseki. The crew members tried to stop him but were slashed to death. Suddenly, Jingoro's ankle was grabbed by a large hand, and Kasumigaseki appeared. Revealing himself, he lifted Jingoro high up in the air and threw him into the sea. Once Jingoro fell into the sea, his body rapidly dissolved. His ninjutsu was the art of salt dissolution, and any contact with salt would cause his body to dissolve quickly, and the seawater was his greatest enemy. When Wan swam to him, Jingoro had completely melted away. Meanwhile, Kasumigaseki was quite pleased with himself. But suddenly, he witnessed a horrifying scene. Tenzen, whose neck had been choked and severed, appeared once again. This was Tenzen's powerful ninjutsu, the art of immortality. No one knew the details of his ninjutsu, because anyone who knew had already died. Kasumigaseki's face was filled with shock. He had clearly killed him before. Why did he reappear unharmed? Looking at the ninja sword thrown by Tenzen, Kasumigaseki disappeared once again, to force Kasumigaseki to reveal himself. Tenzen had become completely deranged. He raised his katana and killed one of the crew members. Suddenly, Kasumigaseki emerged from behind him, and Tenzen swung his katana, but a punch knocks the weapon out of his hand. The two engaged in close combat, and after suffering 2 attacks, Kasumigaseki disappeared once again. Taking advantage of Tenzen's distraction, Kasumigaseki picked up the ninja sword and swung it down towards him. Suddenly, a young boy appeared behind Tenzen, and at that critical moment, the boy's father appeared. blocking the deadly blow. Kasumigaseki killed the boy's father by mistake. Seeing the boy crying out for his father, he was reminded of his own father, who was brutally killed by IGA ninja. When he was young, he was just like this boy, crying bitterly over his father's corpse. By now, Kasumigaseki's mind was reeling, and Wan emerged from the sea at that moment. Kasumigaseki hastily tried to disappear and escape, but Wan immediately used his ninjutsu. Blood gushed out from Wan's body, covering the entire ship in a mist of blood, and Kasumigaseki's invisibility technique lost its effect. Tenzen took the opportunity to draw his ninja sword and charge forward. The sword plunged deeply into the wooden deck, and as he pulled out the sword, blood gushed out from the wooden board. Thus, Kasumigaseki died in the wooden board. A wooden board was erected at the bridge by the river, attracting many onlookers. On this board, Kasumigaseki's face before he died was printed. At that moment, Genosuke, the leader of the Koga clan, and his men were walking here, but in the face of this fight, it's either you or me. They were doomed to watch their companions. One by one, they will die. There are only 4 people left on each side of IGA and Koga, and the fight will continue. At this moment, Genosuke and Gyubu from Koga fell into an ambush by IGA ninjas. However, Gyubu's strongest ninja technique, the Eye of Counterattack, was ineffective against the blind Chikuma, and he was sadly killed by the opponent. Genosuke took the opportunity to escape. At that moment, Chikuma heard Wan's voice in her ear. She told Chikuma that the leader of IGA, Oboro, had been killed by the ninjas from Koga. Upon hearing Oboro's death, Chikuma's heart completely shattered. Wan came to his side and embraced him with deep affection, but moments later, Chikuma died in Wan's arms. It turned out that the one in front of Chikuma was Kajiro in disguise. Using the poison gas emitted from her body, Kajiro easily killed Chikuma. Shortly after, the real Oboro and Wan arrived. Looking at the deceased Chikuma, Wan knelt before him, weeping in sorrow. Then she went to Gyubu's body and began to whip it furiously, venting her anger. At that moment, a group of warriors approached from the other side of the road. Wan quickly picked up her sickle and protected Oboro behind her. Under the questioning of the warriors, it was revealed that the 2 of them were ninjas from IGA. Then a woman got off the palanquin. She was Mrs. Afu, the nurse of the Shogun's son, Chio. Because the IGA ninjas represent the interests of Chio, the son of the Shogun, she was on her way to IGA's territory. But Wan told her that only she and Oboro were left in IGA now. Mrs. Afu couldn't believe it. The truce between the 2 clans had just been lifted. However, the war between them was so brutal, so Mrs. Afu decided to send them to the Shogunate for protection. Meanwhile, Seimon, disguised as Tenzen, had found Wan and told her that Chikuma was actually killed by Kajiro. Under Seimon's guidance, they quickly found Kajiro. Hatred had driven Wan to madness by now. She wielded Chikuma's sickle with all her strength and madly swung it towards Kajiro. Soon, Kajiro was at a disadvantage. Then Wan unleashed the blood mist technique, enveloping Kajiro in a mist of blood. Raising her sickle, Wan was about to kill her, but then a man suddenly appeared and took control of her. Wan looked at him in disbelief, and Kajiro, seeing this, stepped forward without hesitation, stabbing Wan to death with a single strike. Now, only Oboro, whose eyes were sealed, remained on the side of IGA. Seimon decided to go alone and assassinate her. At that moment, a large number of Mrs. Afu's retainers arrived at the bridge. The man at the head was the real Tenzen. At his command, Seimon was stabbed through the body with a lance by a large number of samurai. The next day, Kajiro sought out Tenzen, intending to personally kill Oboro. Unbeknownst to her, the person before her was not Seimon but Tenzen himself. Tenzen planned to humiliate Kajiro before killing her. However, he was unaware of Kajiro's ninja technique, which involved exhaling a toxic breath when excited. Moments later, Tenzen died beside Kajiro. The Shogunate warriors guarding the entrance witnessed this scene and immediately rushed in, quickly subduing Kajiro. Mrs. Afu initially intended to execute Kajiro outright, but Oboro suggested using her as bait to lure Genosuke and eradicate the Koga clan's ninjas entirely. However, that night, Kajiro used her beauty to eliminate the guards and stealthily infiltrated Oboro's residence. Just as she raised her blade to strike Oboro, her arm was suddenly gripped from behind. The person behind her was Tenzen. To punish and humiliate Kajiro, Tenzen bound her to a stone pillar and proceeded to pierce her body with silver needles, causing excruciating pain with each insertion. Kajiro's screams of agony echoed throughout the village. Unable to bear seeing Kajiro tortured so cruelly, Oboro found Tenzen and asked him to give Kajiro a swift death. However, Tenzen scorned Oboro's compassion and intensified his torment of Kajiro. Shortly afterward, Tenzen dragged Oboro into the house, preparing to derive pleasure from a different method. As Tenzen prepared for his next move, the candles in the room suddenly extinguished, and Kajiro was freed. The rescuer was Genosuk. Tenzen saw that he had accomplished his goal, raised his ninja sword to strike Genosuk. Genosuk raised his weapon to block and quickly jumped out of the house. In Tenzen's eyes, the Genosuk without the eye of counterattack was merely a waste. Each clash of their ninja swords sparked in the darkness, but the blind Genosuk gradually fell behind. He was soon wounded on his left arm by Tenzen. During the fight, although Tenzen sustained injuries, his body rapidly repaired itself. As the battle continued, Genosuk was ultimately defeated and fell to the ground. At that moment, Tenzen looked at Genosuk proudly. He told the truth about 50 years. He was trying to stop the marriage of the heirs of the two families at that time. He used a trick to start a war between the two families, because in his mind, only one of the IGA and Koga clans could survive. As Tenzen prepared to deliver the final blow, Genosuk's blurred vision allowed him to see. Tenzen directly stabbed Genosuk's left shoulder with his ninja sword. Enduring the intense pain, Genosuk swiftly struck Tenzen with a horizontal slash. After slaying Tenzen, only Genosuk and Oboro remained in that place. During their conversation, Oboro revealed to Genosuk that she sealed her own eye of disillusionment because she didn't want to witness the war between the two clans. She even asked Genosuk to kill her. After hearing Oboro's words, Genosuk lost all motivation to fight. Kajiro, barely alive, crawled out of the house. She pleaded with Genosuk to kill Oboro, but Genosuk approached her and carried her, intending to return to the Koga territory. But at this point, Kajiro was devastated. She just wanted to die with Genosuk. She released a breath of poison, and Genosuk's body can't take it anymore. Both of them fell to the ground. Just when Kajiro was about to die with Genosuk, Oboro broke free from the seal on her eyes. She used her eye of disillusionment to unravel Kajiro's ninjutsu. Meanwhile, Mrs. Affu's warriors were on their way to the scene. To protect Genosuk, Oboro hid him under the steps. Soon, Mrs. Affu arrived with her warriors and saw Tenzen's decapitated head. Recognizing him as an immortal ninja, she had the body lifted and the head placed back in its original position. In the next moment, something eerie happened. The wound on Tenzen's neck began to heal on its own. However, Oboro, not far away, activated her eye of disillusionment, instantly breaking Tenzen's immortality technique. With a cry of agony, Tenzen's head flew off and fell lifeless to the ground. After Tenzen's death, Genosuk was taken to Hattori Hanzo's residence. Under Hattori Hanzo's witness, he was to face Oboro in a final battle of life and death. Look at the names that were erased from the list. Hattori Hanzo was also shocked. In just 10 days, so many powerful ninja have died. As the sun set, Genosuk was brought to the riverside, where his destined battle with Oboro would take place. Mrs. Affu remained nearby, continuously urging Oboro to kill Genosuk. Oboro slowly raised her ninja sword, and after gazing at Genosuk one last time, she stabbed it into her own heart. At that moment, Genosuk's eyes fully regained their sight. As he looked on in silence, he saw Oboro lying lifeless on the ground. Mrs. Affu completely lost her sanity and shouted for her subordinates to kill Genosuk. However, under the gaze of Genosuk's eye of counterattack, these warriors began to commit suicide one after another. Afterward, Genosuk embraced Oboro and wrote a message on the list of names, stating that IGA had emerged victorious. He carried Oboro in his arms and walked toward the river. In the center of the river, he chose to end his own life. The bodies of the two embraced each other and fell into the river. With that, the entire anime came to an end. I'm always happy to share great shows in anime. If you have any anime recommendations, feel free to leave a comment for me.